What up, guys? What up? What up? How y'all doing today, man? Doing pretty good. Streaming in the middle of the day. So pretty much I changed my schedule from Tuesday nights to Tuesday um, in the afternoon. So it's 11. What time? 11:18. Kind of late. Running a little bit late. I was trying to jump on at 11, so a little bit behind. But nevertheless, um, I changed my schedule. I used to do it Tuesday nights to Tuesday at 11 a.m. Today we're gonna do about an hour, maybe go a little bit more than an hour. Depends if there's anything that comes up. But either way, we're gonna do at least about an hour. Again, we're gonna be talking Python programming. If you have code that you want me to review, if you need help with something, again, this is the time, man. The live streams is where I'm making some time throughout the day to kind of help you out. If you're stuck, you want to review, so whatever it is, guys, this is the time. If there is something that you want to share with me, you can email me. Let me put my email in the chat real quick. But you could send me an email. Where is it at? There it goes. So my email is going to be at contact@iamblue.net. So again, if you have any source code that you want me to review, send it to my email. If whatever it may be, guys. So just leave it on the chat. But nevertheless, I want to talk to y'all about until something comes up, we'll kind of jump on that. If not, we're gonna kind of talk about Python. So one of the things I want to talk to y'all about, let me find it real quick. Let me find the email. Which I thought it was a bit interesting. This was a Reddit. But let me see, where is it at? I get so many things from Reddit, but where was this at? Was this? I swear it was like just a couple days ago, but man, maybe it was further back. Nope. That's not it. Where is it? Nope, that's not it. Damn, did it come from Reddit? Or maybe not. So either way, I still remember what the subject was. I was trying to bring it up because I wanted to kind of see. Maybe it wasn't Reddit. You know what? Maybe it was not. There it goes. This is what it was, and let's kind of go to it right quick because I do want to discuss this. So let me share my screen. There it goes. And let me make it a bit bigger. So one of the things I want to kind of share, and the reason why I'm saying Python, because when I read it, they kind of mentioned Python. So that's kind of, since this is a Python kind of subject that we're talking about today, like Python programming, I want to kind of review. So ultimately, what this post is talking about, is Windows 10 good enough for web? Again, a web, not mobile. It's very specific, web development, right? So that's what it's asking. Is Windows 10 good enough? So that's the thing about it. They're not even asking if it's real great. They're saying, is it good enough for web development? Okay, so just kind of reading on to it, they talk about depends, for Node.js is fine, but for Python not so much. All right, so for me, this is already a red flag. And I'm wondering where they're getting their information from, to be exactly. Like, I read different posts all the time from just different people. And again, in this case, I'm talking about Python specific in a ways. But where they talk about, Python, like, oh, Python is not good for this. Or Python sucks at this. Or Python is, whatever, right? Most of the time, whatever it may be. Of course, in my mind, somebody who has been programming in Python for years now, like how many years? Maybe 10 years. somebody who has done all kinds of stuff in Python. I have created a desktop app in Python. I've created desktop app. Have done many web apps, like many web apps, APIs, um, web services. Back end using Python. Have not done mobile in Python, even though there's a framework for that, but I wouldn't recommend it anyways. I played around with it, but I never completed it. It was buggy, put it that way. That's a couple of years back. But either way, I have done different projects in Python. I have worked on different environments. So I have a MacBook Pro that I use when I travel. My workstation is a Linux machine. And of course, as you could tell, I'm streaming right now on my Windows 11. Then I have another PC over here, which has Windows 10. So again, Linux, Windows 10, Windows 11, and Mac. So I have dabbled with many different operating systems as well, right? I'm not using just one operating system. Like I'm always jumping from one operating system to another in Python. Doing development. So for me, the way my workflow is today, I could easily work on my Python web app on my Linux machine. Then if I travel using my Mac, I could continue to work on my web app on my Mac. And then if I ever need to jump here on my Windows, I could continue developing on my Windows machine. And I have never had any issues. So that's why whenever I hear the statement, that says, is Windows 10 good enough for web development? And the first thing they mention is Node.js is fine, but Python not so much. I'm not sure where they're getting that from. For me, that's kind of a red flag. Like where is that even coming from? Like I guess that's read on. There's also the other slight problem that the odds are 99% will be deployed your site on a Linux computer. So this is valid by all means. Like all of my apps that I deploy, they are on a Linux PC. Now I can tell you right now, I have developed some of these apps strictly on Windows only. Then I deployed over to a Linux machine, and most of the time there is no problems. Even though I say most of the time, it's those small nuances where you may have some problems. Like kind of give an example. If I'm going to install like Postgres package for Python, there's two different versions. One of them is where it builds a dependency on your application, and it does it by operating system. Another one is where you bring in your binary files in to your from when you install your package, and then because of that, it should just kind of work on its own. I've had issues where whenever I run it on Windows, I don't bring in the binary package. I do the build, so it builds it on my which works for Windows, and it builds it and it works fine. When I deploy it over to a Linux machine, it tries to build it, but then it has issues, or maybe doesn't have permissions or access or things of that nature. So I need to use the other one. So it just kind of depends, right, on what it is. Hey, what's up, guys? How y'all doing? Sorry, my English is bad. No problem, man. No problem. Hey, what's up, Python developer? How you doing, man? I'm doing pretty good. I have a class in 12 p.m., but I could stay. No, that's cool, man. That's cool. So we just kind of today just kind of going over some Python stuff, and it's gonna be probably, I think I started I don't know what time did I start, a few minutes ago, but it's probably only gonna be like an hour live stream today. So it is gonna be a shorter live stream. Any questions that you may have, by all means, we'll try to answer. I know you mentioned about EventBridge and Lambda plus SharePoint to S3. So that one is going to take for sure way more much more time. So I did just kind of give you an FYI on the whole Lambda deal that we were testing out. So I actually ran it on my Linux machine. to get the zip file, and I had issues with it. So I kind of followed the process to do it on Amazon's Linux OS that they have. I still had issues. So man, I'm kind of stuck there. I'm trying to figure out what's happening, but it's not. Oh, it's related to that LMXML package, because it is using some C compiled files. There's some issues happening there. So I'm still trying to do some research, trying to figure out. But I'm noticing a lot of people having issues too. So I think it's whatever it is, people having issues with that package on Lambda. So again, I need to look into it some more, try to figure it out. But we'll play around with it some more. I'm gonna play around with it some more during the week, and hopefully have some kind of solution for Friday when we do a live stream Friday. We'll have more time on Friday, so we'll be able to kind of test out more things on Friday as well. Lou, where you begin learning Python? So for me, the way I learned Python, and again, I've been programming in Python for about 10 years, maybe. I'm gonna say 9 years or so, maybe around there. I actually learned database first. So I've been doing database like work SQL for like probably 11 years. I learned that first, and that helped me out. But the reason why I even started learning Python, I guess, or started programming, was at the current job that I worked at the time. We used to build like process flows for operations, and so we always try to find solutions to like automate, some of the processes out in the warehouse and stuff like that. So I had a meeting with the IT team, and like our software developer, they were C# guys, and I told them like, hey, we were trying to automate this process, and I think we could potentially automate everything if we could build an app that does X, Y, and Z. So, ultimately I kind of gave them the details of, hey, we want to build this app. We want this app to extract PDF data. We're going to load it to the database. Then we're going to send data to the system, and, all kinds of stuff like that. So what they told me was like, oh, that can't be done. That's not doable. That's impossible. It's not doable, what they told me. And again, these are software guys that have been coding for like 15 years plus. But I think what it was is not that it can't be done. What it was is they just didn't want to spend the time to do it. So for me, in my mind, I'm thinking, dude, that's BS. Like, it can be done. I know it could be done. So what I ended up doing was that same day I went home, and I ended up learning like programming fundamentals. And it just happened to be they were using Python in a lot of these tutorials and so on. So as I started learning Python programming fundamentals, because we're using Python, so I became familiar with the syntax. I picked it up quick. And I think the reason why I picked it up quick was I already had like 2 years worth of database knowledge. And so I was already dealing with more advanced database stuff like procedures, functions, declaring variables. So all of that, kind of similar to programming as well, same concepts. So as I started taking this online course, I think I did like 2 weeks. Dude, after that, it was like a 6-week course, but after 2 weeks, I felt like I'm good to go. So I started building that app, the app that I had in mind. I started building it. Now I started learning still as I started building it, because I started getting familiar with like, well, how do you use packages, right? You got to install these packages, like Excel packages, or how to extract PDF data, how to get familiar with that, like get familiar with those packages and so on. So that was my first app. That was me like barely learning programming, but I built an app. And that app that I built pretty much did exactly what we wanted to do. So we were able to automate pretty much the full process. And of course, I probably built that app in the matter of like 4 weeks. Somebody who never programmed before took 2 weeks of just learning. But again, I was spending hours every day. You're going to keep that in mind too. Like every time I got off of work, I was going home every day, 7 days a week. I was spending at least 4, maybe even 6 hours a day, just like digging in, learning, getting familiar with the syntax, all of that. But again, I did have knowledge already, man. Like I had database knowledge, which helped out. So that helped out a lot. All right, man. No, man, I appreciate all the support for sure, man. I've been getting a lot of support as here on YouTube, and man, I do appreciate it for sure. Um, so just kind of going back to Python, what we're talking about here with Python, um, so one of the things he mentions is that 99% of the deployments on your are on your Linux computers, and this is true. Like all of my deployments that I do, are on Linux computers. I don't even know if I even have one that's on Windows. To be honest, I may have one that's on Windows, and it was because of um, I needed to use the like NT authentication or something like that. But besides that, everything else that I have is all Linux. So he's right about this. But I could tell you right now, through my own experience, somebody who has actually coded completely on the Windows machine, then I deployed to Linux machine, I will say majority of the time I don't have any issues. There's some cases that there may be an issue, and it's more so related with like a specific package. But again, most of the time it's not a problem. Even that scenario that I had where with like a specific package, um, ultimately there's two packages you could use that do the same thing. One of them it's a binary version, the other one is not. And in that case, if I were to use a binary version of that package, then it would work for Windows, Mac, and Linux, without having to make any changes. So those are little things that you kind of learn as you go. But again, I have done this, never had an issue, never. So by the level being in on a different operating system, you potentially risk some issues. So again, there's some truth to this. Again, there are some truths to this where there is some potential, but again, it varies. Most of the time, it's not like you're taking code. Like a good example would be like with the issue that we're having with Lambda. It kind of seems because the Lambda runs on the Amazon Linux operating system, like their version of Linux, like their flavor. It seems like because that LXML package contains some C compiled files, that you have to run some, that zip process, which, the process to ultimately install your packages, then of course zip them. It seems like it's the answers that I've been getting are leading to you gotta do it on their Amazon Linux OS version. Because the way it compiles is probably very specific. It kind of some nuances that relates to the operating system. It's a shame that few people broadcast programming, especially in Russia. I'm learning Python in total, and I'm dude. That's awesome, dude. That is awesome. Like if you're 14 and you're learning it right now, like again, even if you just learn little bit by little bit, man, like. Just continue to learn every month, every year, man. By the time you're 18, like your knowledge is gonna be way more advanced, and especially now that Python is, at least in my opinion, probably like easily top 5. I'm probably gonna say top 3 programming languages of all programming languages. I'm not saying that it's gonna stay there, but as of right now, that's where it's at, I think. So learning that and getting better at it, dude, that's going to help you out a lot. It really is, man. So, man, that's awesome, man. Just continue to learn. Oh, find stuff too, man. Like if you find any like you have any ideas, like, dude, I want to build this, right? Or whatever it may be. As you're learning, start kind of implementing it. Cause what happens is as you start building something legit, it does you'll start doing research based on pieces that you may be missing, or you start looking for, well, I want to do, let's say, for example, you're trying to extract some data, like web scraping, and you figure that piece out, and then now you want to load it to a database, but you never did that before. That's fine, right? Now you start doing research over how do I load data to a database. And then eventually you'll get familiar, and next thing you know, you start, everything will just, your knowledge will just expand. So, dude, that's awesome, man. It really is. Um, so the whole developing on operating system issues, there is some truth to that. So I don't want to say there is not, but I don't think it's as significant the way this person makes it seem. So he does mention, although in practice, I don't believe I've actually had problems with that. Which again, same thing goes for me, but still, one has to be careful about file system permissions, how file paths is constructed, and so on. But again, this is something that you would kind of have to deal with any other programming language. You're talking about file permissions. That kind of goes for any programming language as well, not just Python. Um, there are packages that when you're dealing with Windows and Linux, for example, you're kind of bouncing back and forwards. A nice package that comes very, very handy that Python has, it's called PurePass. So I actually got a video about that, kind of describing that. So in Windows, you're dealing with like, what is it, backslashes, and Linux, you're dealing with forward slashes, and Mac as well, forward slashes. So anytime you're dealing with directories, and for example Windows, then you jump into Mac and so on, you're gonna have issues with that. But there's a package that Python has that's called PurePass, so it really doesn't even matter which operating system you're doing. What PurePass does is determines based on your OS what OS you're using, and then it auto like determines the forward and backslashes. So that kind of fixes that issue. It's very nice. In general, if you can install Linux or at least a Linux virtual machine, or maybe or something, you might potentially save some headaches. But it's not strictly necessary in many cases. I'm doing web development on Windows, although I have a ton of experience on Linux too, so I don't want to watch out. So I think the question, he kind of starts off kind of saying Node.js is fine, Python not so much, but then at the end he mentions I'm doing web development on Windows. So he kind of, I don't know, it's almost seemed he kind of went back and forth. He started off one way, he finished it off saying, well, I'm using Windows to the level and I'm making it through. But again, it's not really that big of an issue. Not through my experience. And I'm somebody who codes in Windows for a little bit, maybe deploy some features, and then I may work on my workstation, deploy some other features, and then when I travel, I'm using my MacBook Pro, and same thing, deploy some other features, all for the same app. And honestly, I don't have as many issues as I think they're making it seem. What problems Python has on Windows, since libraries specifically are the one native component C, C++. So this, I would say, some of the packages that require C or C++ compilers, that is where, like compiled files, that's where you could have some issues. You won't have issues when you test it and run it on Windows, but when you deploy it, that's why you need to make sure that you do a fresh install. You're not taking those files with you, like they're not part of your Git code change. You're actually doing a fresh install on the server. So if it does generate C compiled files, it generates based on that operating system. I have slightly strange question. How can I learn English at a basic level? I want to enter the university in programming, but they need English. I don't get along with it. I'm gonna be honest with you, that's kind of tough. I'm not sure. I don't know if I really have an answer. Like, how can you learn English the basic level? I mean, I would probably say maybe you could probably find some online courses, perhaps, that are kind of going over the basics of English. I know some people that I have, like back in the day that, for example, that just came to the U.S. From another country, and English was not a language that they really knew. So what they picked up English over time. What they did, I don't know if this is ideal or not, but what they did was they watched a lot of TV. Back then, they were watching a lot of TV. Now you could, of course, it could be YouTube or whatever, but they're watching a lot of TV, and then of course as they watch TV, they just try to pronounce the words as well and kind of go along with it and things of that nature. Like just try to piece on how they're using the words. But honestly, I don't really have a straight answer on that, so I'm not 100% sure. Um, I'm pretty sure there are some courses you can probably find online that people are having, um, and that may be able to help you out. But yeah, that I'm not sure. My English is not the best English either, right? So I don't know if I'm the best one to be giving English advice. Um, let's see. What did they say? Or you could dev on Mac OS, usually bent. So either way, the whole purpose of this article, this post, better yet, I just want to kind of review it. Is Windows 10 good enough for web development? And the answer is yes. It really is. The thing that Windows, if you're especially if you're dealing with like C# development, which of course is big for gaming, it's big for web. You know, it's used for a lot of different places. Even C++ programming, and so on. Windows has a lot of tools built in that makes it very easy to get started. Like so, you have Visual Studio, not VS Code, but Visual Studio. Um, so that's like a sweet. It's kind of like a PyCharm if you ever use PyCharm, but it's by all means way more. I think I don't want to say way more robust, but it's like PyCharm. It's a full integrated system, from a deployment, from a just version control. The list goes on and on. And again, that's for Windows. They have a version for Mac, but I don't think they have a version for Linux. So at least from a development standpoint, it's on Windows, primarily. And again, you gotta have Windows to use that. So I would say back in the day, when I remember when I first started to program in Python, I did have a Windows machine. It was a pain in the ass to set up Python on Windows. It doesn't come with it by default, and the setup process was kind of, you had to tinker with it, and unless you knew what you were doing, you could mess up and so on. Now Windows is so easy to install. Like Python, you could install Python very easy on Windows. Like it doesn't get easier than that, man. Put it that way. It's like I would even say it's easier than Linux. Linux come with Python, which is a nice thing to have. But if they don't have the version that you want, let's say you want the newer version or the beta version, you're trying to do testing, it's not as straightforward as Linux. I've had some issues where I have to tinker with it and so on to kind of get it to work or get it to install. And then sometimes you have issues because now you have multiple versions of Python. So the way you activate it or the way you want to create virtual environments, it points to the wrong version and little things like that. But where I found in Windows, it's a lot cleaner, a lot easier. So it doesn't matter, man. I would tell you right now, when you're coding, use what you have. If you have Mac, Linux, Windows, do all of that works. I believe even Chrome, like Chrome OS, you should be able. I never tried it, but I believe you could even code in that without any issues, and all of that should be fine. So, and I think Python's a good language to learn, man. There's some people that bash on Python. Like some of the things that I hear about Python is, well, Python's slow, and because Python is slow, you shouldn't learn Python. You should learn something more like Java or C# or whatever. Now, or even C++. But the thing about it is, like, okay, I look at it as we know that Python is slower than C++. You know, C++ is like 1,000 times faster than Python. Okay, I get it. I understand that. Then you got C#. Okay, I don't know how much faster. Maybe C# is like 200 times faster than Python or something like that. I'm not sure, but just making up a number for now. All right, so it's faster. But when you build an application, the end user, for one, could care less what's in the back end. End user just cares, does it do what I want? And I have worked on Python applications that has, they're getting traffic. They're getting nothing crazy right now, not like millions of transactions or requests per minute, but they're probably getting a few thousand per minute. And I can tell you right now, everything is like speedy, everything's instant. And the big difference that I have noticed, it's not the programming language. The bottlenecks is going to be your database. So you got to make sure that you got some good resources and bandwidth, and database is nice and fine tuned, which is number one. And then number two is, does your server have resources as well? Like, do you have enough RAM, enough CPU to kind of handle these requests? And most likely now, especially since resources have got a lot cheaper over time, um, that's not an issue. Like, you could easily put, you know, um, have a server with 4 gigs of RAM. You don't even need you don't even need a lot, to be honest with you, or 8 gigs of RAM, and then of course some vCPUs. Maybe a 2-core CPU or something. That would be a reasonable price, and that would handle those few thousand requests per hour with ease. Again, it's not the language. I guess the point I'm trying to make is that whenever your apps run slow, most of the time, it's not even the programming language that they're using. It's going to be database first. Bottlenecks with the database, or database not indexed properly, or is not fine tuned and stuff like that, or needs more resources. And then once you fix that, everything's like running smooth. Eventually, once let's say you do build an app and it continues to grow in traffic, and now you get in a few million requests per minute or per hour or whatever. Then that is where yeah, you may need to increase resources on your server, and then eventually get to the point where maybe it doesn't make sense. But again, I always look at it as, if I build an app and I'm selling the app, and that's in the beginning, I'm only getting a few dozen requests per minute. I don't need a lot of resources. Language doesn't matter. Let's say over time I'm getting a few thousand requests per minute. That means my app getting traffic, which means if I'm selling the app, I'm probably getting some revenue coming in, which is good. Then eventually the app goes from a few thousand requests per minute to a few million requests per minute. Again, that's good. That means my app is getting traffic. And if you're getting that much traffic, there's a good chance that you're getting some good revenue coming out of your app. And if you're at that point where now you're getting tons of millions of requests per minute, and it seems like you already added more resources to the server and it still cannot handle the workload, the database, you're pretty confident that's very tuned to the best that it can, is indexed and all that's working fine, and you're still having these slow issues, that is where it's probably time to switch the back end to something else. Maybe you switch it to Rust, Golang, something of that sort, like more modern. But again, the way I look at it from a business, this is where I kind of mix programming and business together. Build your app, get it out there ASAP right away, and see if it even does good. Maybe it doesn't do good, maybe it does. And if it does good over time, and you're now generating a lot of money coming in, maybe you're generating, hundreds of thousands to maybe millions of dollars a month because, your app is getting hit so much traffic. You could afford now, you should have a team, and you should be able to afford now to have a team. And then you could now have multiple great minds together to come up with a better solution. That's the way I look at it, right? So I know the whole argument, well, Python is slow. You should never use Python for a production, web app. It should only be used for data science, right? Kind of what I hear. It's only good for data science, which is a bunch of BS. There's a lot of apps out there, whether people realize this or not. Google at one time back in the day was using Python for a while. It eventually had to get off of Python because they were getting so much traffic. Again, their app grew way beyond than how they originally designed it, and that happens, and that's fine. I like to think of it as kind of like when you buy a home, right? Let's say when you first get married and it's just you and your wife, you buy a home, and you buy probably a single family home with the mindset of, okay, if we have a child or something, we could grow into the home. And that's what you do. You may live there for a few years. You have a child. Y'all grow up in the house. Then eventually, as time goes on, you may have multiple kids. You don't have one kid. Now you have 4 kids, for example. Well, now you don't fit in that 3 bedroom home no more. So now it becomes, okay, now we need to upgrade to another home. But you don't do it right away. You don't upgrade in the very beginning. There's no need to. There's a lot more extra costs and this and that. So it's better like, all right, that's why I look at Python. Python is very good, it's very powerful, and it could do way more than I think people give it credit for. And if you do build an app in Python, that's fine. I think it's perfectly fine. It's like for me the whole mindset is it's no different than like Ruby on Rails, JavaScript, PHP, all of these languages that are mentioned, they're kind of in the same family. Like PHP, I would say is faster than Python on how it's being utilized, but nevertheless, though, they're all pretty comparable languages, scripting languages, whatever you want to call them, right? But they're all pretty much kind of in the same family, I would say. It doesn't matter which one you use, man. Whichever one you use is going to most likely 99% of the time is going to get the job done. It's going to be able to handle the workload. By the time you start having some issues, it's not going to be the language. Most likely going to be the back end. It's going to be the bottleneck. And you could always up the resources, give it some more RAM, give it some more CPU power if you're growing and you need more power. But eventually, just like how I mentioned, just as your family grows from not having no kids to now you got 4 kids and you need to upgrade to a home, that's when you do it as well in program. If you build an app in Python, you build an app, and then if you're getting a few 100 requests a day, then 3 years later you're getting a few million requests per minute. That is probably when you're like, all right, we're gonna upgrade. We're gonna move to something else, maybe a more modern language to handle the back end activity, and that's fine. Because the way I look at it, by then you're probably making money now off the app. You have a team. You could afford to hire a team. You could afford to have these smart brains come together and figure out a better solution to handle the workload. Again, that's just my view. That's how I view these languages. There's programmers that I have talked to, and they kind of see it as okay, I'm building this app, but I want to build it where it's scalable. Like they're trying to think long term up front. So they're trying to build they're trying to optimize it up front, to all these scenarios. We want to make sure we could handle millions of requests at once per minute if that happens and this and that. Then what happens is they deploy their app and their app does crap. Maybe gets a few dozen requests a minute. Maybe does a few hundred requests a minute. That's it. It's like, dude, you spend all this extra time, extra effort, extra money, and so on an app to try to over optimize it, and then for what? Nobody using it to the level that you're thinking, right? And again, that's I think part of the delusion where too many people feel they're building the next Facebook, the next TikTok, or whatever, right? Platform that gets millions and millions of requests per second or per minute, and that's not true. Most apps will not even get to that point. And if you build an app that does get to that point, do what YouTube did, Google did. They used Python on the back end for years until they saw that, hey, we're just getting too many search requests. We need to change languages, and they did. They switched the back end. I believe they switched to Java. But again, they were using Python for a few years, man. So again, for me, that's smart. You use the language that get in, build it, see if people even want that, and if it takes off later on, you have a team you could afford to upgrade pretty much. But again, that's my views. I know not every software guy sees it that way. There's a lot of software people that I have heard them talk about the subject of Python or how they see Python, and if anything, they see Python like, no, I will never use that language, or it's not good enough. It's not good enough for production, right? It's not production grade. It's only for testing or prototyping, which again, it's like, dude, like I don't even know how people even think that nowadays. Like, Google use it in their production system for probably the not probably is the number one search engine in the world, and they used it for some years on their end in production, not for prototyping, but for production. So again, when people say stuff like that, it just tells me how they don't really understand, and probably they don't understand because they don't use Python. That would be my guess. They probably don't use it on a daily basis, or they don't. It's the whole, well, I heard somebody else, so now they believe what they heard, but they don't ever test it out. It's like whenever it's like the whole thing with um, Windows and Mac users. You know, you got some people like, oh, Windows suck. That's why I use Mac. But then at the same time, when I talk to some of them or ask them, or it's like, have you used Windows lately? Oh, no, I haven't used Windows back in Windows 7 or Windows Vista or whatever. It's like, well, dude, how do you even know it's bad or you never used it? Like, how about you use most of them, like, as of today? And then you can kind of give a better input if it's good or bad. Same thing with programming. You know, if you, like, I actually, like, a lot of these guys that talk about it in that manner, I'm like, dude, like, C Sharp is awesome. Like, some of these guys are C Sharp guys or Java guys. Like, Java's awesome. Would I ever build an app using those languages? C Sharp maybe, but Java, no. Man, there's a lot of the development work is a lot more. There's a lot of code to write in Java to build something small. Where in Python, I could do with very more condensed code to get the same results. You know, something in Java, maybe I have to write 1,000 lines of code, but for that same 1,000 lines of code, maybe I only write 100 lines of code in Python. I'd rather take that because I could get through it quickly, get it out there quickly, get feedback quickly, make changes quickly, and see if it even going to work or people even like it, right? So, I don't know. That's just my view when it comes to Python. Let's see, what time is it? So it's already noon. So I'm going to be on for a few more minutes. So let me know again, guys, if you have any questions. I'm going to be doing this every Tuesday. So I do 2 live streams. I do one on Tuesday around this time, 11. And I do it at this time to be able to get, I have a lot of international followers. And it gives them a chance to kind of join the live stream. If they have questions, I could try to answer their questions that they have. If they want a guidance in programming, I could try to guide them. If they want me to review their code, I could do that as well. Like, we could do all that kind of stuff. So these live streams are for a lot of that stuff, man. So again, just keep that in mind. If you need help, you want me to review something, you want me to review your code, live streams, it's what it's for. I'll have another live stream on Fridays, which I've been having every Friday. Now, that one's not on Friday until Friday night, 9 p.m. So I know those live streams, especially my international viewers, it's more harder for them to view that, which is totally understandable. But nevertheless, man, keep in mind these live streams I will be doing every Tuesday around the same time. And if you do want something, if you do need help, let me know. I do have as well. I probably should have put it on there. I'll put it on the summary of this live stream. I'm gonna put my calendar link on there. If you want any one-on-one training sessions, whether it be you want to ask me questions about Python programming, whether it be anything related to AWS, maybe you need help, whatever it is. Find some time on the calendar, and I'll be more than happy to do a Zoom call, jump on a Zoom call with you for 30 minutes, and we could try to solve your problem, or I could try to help you out in either way. So I'll put that in the body and of my live stream. You take a look at it. And again, guys, appreciate it, man. Thanks for joining. And I will be on Friday at 9 p.m. Central for my Friday live stream. Peace.